Darkness. Cold, unyielding silence stretches across the void of space, but then fire. A brilliant eruption blooms in the abyss, a shockwave rippling outward as the shattered remains of a warship break apart, spilling debris and frozen bodies into the infinite black. The colossal Terran battleship Titan's Wrath, once a beacon of Earth's military power, now drifts as nothing more than a lifeless corpse, its once proud hull torn open like the ribs of a fallen giant. Inside the wreckage, amid flickering emergency lights and ruptured conduits spewing plumes of vapor, Major Elias Voss remains conscious, barely. Blood seeps from a deep gash across his temple, stinging his eyes as he blinks against the haze. His ears ring from the aftershock of the last missile barrage, his body pressed against the restraints of his command chair. A single shattered display flickers before him, showing the grim reality. Fleet destroyed. Mission failure. No reinforcements. The weight of those words crushes him. His fingers tremble as they hover over the shattered controls, but there is nothing left to command. The battle, the war, is over. Humanity's final defense, the Vanguard Armada, has been obliterated. The enemy, ruthless, inescapable, now moves toward Earth unchallenged, and he is alone. A crackling transmission struggles through the static, barely reaching the failing comm systems. A familiar voice, weak, distorted. Elias, if you're alive, get out, there's nothing left to fight for. Earth is falling, evacuate you while you still... The message cuts out. Silence. A sharp breath catches in Voss's throat. His mind races against the truth screaming in front of him. Earth, the home he swore to protect, the cradle of everything humanity has built, is gone. The Vanguard Armada had been the last line of defense, and now, nothing. The shattered remains of warships and fallen soldiers drift in the black void. The Terran Republic spent centuries preparing for war, designing warships that could tear apart planets, building weapons that could bend the very laws of physics. And it wasn't enough. How? Did it come to this? It started with a signal, a message cast into the void, a beacon of curiosity, of hope, of blind arrogance. We are here, we are not alone, and we are waiting. For decades there was silence. The great cosmic abyss remained indifferent. Scientists waited, dreamers speculated, but the truth was far worse than anything they imagined. They did not come as diplomats. They did not come to share knowledge, to extend hands across the stars. They came as conquerors. The Zeeth, a species as ancient as the galaxies themselves, their dominion stretching across the known universe like an unbreakable chain. Their ships, biomechanical monstrosities, moved through space like sentient beings, their sleek, living, hulls pulsing with eerie blue veins. Their weapons, beyond comprehension, beyond human limits, capable of dissolving entire fleets in a single moment. Their first strike was absolute. Earth's colonies in the Andromeda expanse, obliterated in hours. Entire planets stripped of life, their atmospheres burned away, leaving only husks drifting in the void. When the United Terran Republic finally understood the threat, it was too late. The war had already begun. Humanity fought. With every ounce of strength, with every weapon at its disposal. The fall of Titan, the siege of Mars, the last stand at Europa. The names of battles became legends, stories of courage, of sacrifice, of impossible odds. But the Zeeth were relentless. For every ship destroyed, 10 more emerged from the abyss. Their technology was not just superior, it was incomprehensible. It was as if they had studied us for centuries, knowing every weakness, every flaw, every blind spot. And so, one by one, the stars went dark. Now floating among the wreckage of the fallen fleet, Major Voss stares at the final transmission flashing on the screen of his failing command console. Our final, desperate message from Earth's last command station. All planetary defenses have failed. Evacuate immediately. This is the end. His breath is ragged. His body aches. His mind whispers that this is it. The last chapter of humanity, written in blood and fire. There is no more war to fight, no battle left to win. He should let go. But something deep within him refuses to surrender, because legends aren't written by those who accept defeat. He grips the controls, feeling the Broken edges bite into his fingers. The flickering HUD display reveals the wreckage of a nearby Zeeth warship, its defenses offline, its core reactor pulsing weakly. An idea sparks, a desperate, reckless, insane idea. If he can reach that ship, if he can board it, he might find something, a weakness, a way to strike back. Imagine, what if there was one last chance? One final battle hidden in the ashes of a fallen civilization? One final soldier who refuses to die? Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Right now, Galactic War Stories is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you love epic sci-fi battles, deep space mysteries, and the untold stories of the cosmos, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us grow this universe together. The Zeeth believe they have won. They believe the war is over, but they do not know Major Elias Voss, and they have no idea what is coming next. Major Elias Voss knew that hesitation meant death. The shattered remains of the Titan's wrath groaned. Around him, its failing systems flickering in protest. Somewhere in the wreckage, fires burned in oxygen pockets, devouring what little remained of the ship's life support. His suit's HUD flashed a warning, pressure drop imminent. His oxygen reserves were dwindling. His ship was dead, and the enemy was still out there. But through the debris field, illuminated by the eerie glow of distant wreckage, he saw it, his only chance of survival. A Zeeth warship. The alien vessel loomed in the darkness like a wounded predator, its biomechanical surface pulsing with an unnatural blue glow. Its hull shaped not by human engineering, but by something far more advanced, organic, shifting, almost alive. Voss had fought against them, had watched these ships tear apart human fleets with impossible precision. But this one was damaged. Perhaps fate had intervened. Perhaps it was a malfunction. Or perhaps the universe was offering one. Final desperate play. Voss gritted his teeth and reached for the emergency thruster on his flight suit. The moment he activated it, he was thrown forward, leaving behind the wreckage of the Titan's wrath, propelled through the void like a missile. His breathing was steady, controlled. He had done dozens of zero-gravity maneuvers in his career, but never like this, never with so much on the line. As he approached the Zeeth ship, details became clearer. Its hull shifted, rippling like liquid metal, reacting to his approach. Organic tendrils moved sluggishly, as if the ship itself was alive but injured. Its defenses were down, its weapons offline. Whatever had happened here, the ship was not at full strength. That didn't mean it wasn't deadly. Voss reached for the plasma cutter on his belt, a standard-issue tool designed for emergency hull breaches, human hulls. But this was no ordinary metal. He had no idea what the Zeeth ship was made of, no understanding of how its systems functioned. The moment his boots made contact with the surface, he felt it, a pulse. The ship reacted to him. The sensation crawled up his spine, a vibration beneath his feet, like standing on the chest of a slumbering beast. His heart pounded. He pressed the plasma cutter to the hull and activated it. The moment the blade ignited, the metal beneath him moved. The hull split open. Not like a breach, like an invitation. A wave of nausea rolled through his gut as he stared into the shifting organic corridor that formed before him. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not a ship, not a machine, but a living structure. He could turn back. He could drift in space, waiting for oxygen to run out, waiting for the cold embrace of death. But that wasn't who he was. That wasn't how he would die. Voss clenched his fists and stepped forward. The moment he crossed the threshold, the opening sealed behind him, the metal flesh shifting, swallowing the breach as if it had never existed. He was inside, his helmet's visor adjusted, filtering the dim, bioluminescent glow that lined the ship's interior. The walls pulsed, veins of blue light running through their shifting surfaces. There was air. His suit's readings showed a breathable atmosphere, nitrogen-rich, slightly denser than Earth's. That alone sent a wave of unease through him. The Zeeth didn't wear suits. They didn't wear armor. Their bodies were designed for the void. And yet this ship had air, as if it was meant for something or someone like him. He moved carefully, scanning his surroundings. No crew, no guards. The ship was silent, but it wasn't dead. Every few steps the walls rippled in response to his presence, as if the ship itself was aware of him, studying him. Then he heard it. A sound, not mechanical, not electronic, but biological. A deep, slow exhale. A presence, just ahead. Voss, instinctively, gripped his sidearm. It was a futile gesture. He knew his weapon was useless against the Zeeth. He had seen their soldiers withstand direct hits, their bodies regenerating wounds in seconds. If he encountered one here, it would be over, but the sound as it was different. He rounded the corner and froze. Suspended in a translucent chamber of thick, pulsating material was a figure. Humanoid. A human. His breath caught. It was impossible, no prisoners. The Zeeth never took prisoners. The Terran Republic had fought them for years, and not once had they recovered a captured soldier. The Zeeth left no survivors. They destroyed. They erased. They consumed. And yet here, before his very eyes, was a human, floating inside what looked like an organic containment cell. The figure was male, wearing remnants of a Terran flight suit, but something was wrong. His skin had a faint, unnatural glow, veins darkened by an unknown substance. His eyes were closed, face serene, as if in deep sleep. Voss stepped closer, reaching out. The figure's eyes snapped open, bright blue, luminous, unnatural. A voice echoed, not from the chamber, not from the ship, but directly into Voss's mind. "You shouldn't be here." A wave of dizziness crashed over him. His vision blurred. His mind, his thoughts, felt like they were being unraveled. The ship's walls pulsed violently. The corridor around him shifted, sealing itself, twisting, changing. The ship was no longer passive. It was reacting. It knew, and it was waking up. Voss staggered back, gripping his head, fighting against the force invading his mind. He had seconds, maybe less, before the ship overwhelmed him. He had come searching for answers. He had just found something far more dangerous. Pain. Not the kind that comes from broken bones or burning flesh. This was deeper, more insidious. Voss felt his mind tearing apart, his memories scattering like debris in a storm. He clutched his skull, teeth grinding as the alien presence inside the ship coiled around his thoughts like a constricting serpent. "You shouldn't be here." The voice echoed again, not from the chamber, not from the walls, but from inside him. His knees buckled, his vision distorted, flashes of something, not his memories, searing into his mind. A fleet drifting in darkness, worlds burning, consumed by some unseen force. Zeeth warriors kneeling before a shadow. A voice, cold, calculating, ancient. Then the chamber holding the human prisoner pulsed, its translucent surface peeling back like dissolving skin. The figure within collapsed forward, landing hard on the floor. Voss staggered backward, his sidearm trembling in his grip. The man twitched, his body jerking unnaturally as if something inside him was wrong. The faint bioluminescence beneath his skin pulsed in erratic patterns, his breathing shallow. Then he spoke. Not in a whisper, not in a gasp, but in a voice layered, human yet infused with something alien. "They're coming." The ship shuddered. Voss barely had time to react before the corridor behind him sealed shut, the organic walls fusing together like freshly healed flesh. The ship's interior came alive with a sickening rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat growing louder. "Move." The prisoner's voice snapped him out of it. The man, still struggling to stand, locked eyes with him. "Now!" Voss had spent his career taking orders from no one but his commanding officers. He had led squads into hell and back, relying on discipline, not blind trust. But something about the way this man spoke, the urgency, the sheer certainty, made him move. He didn't ask questions, he just ran. The walls shifted around them, changing, blocking old paths while opening new ones. It was no longer just a vessel, it was aware, directing them, guiding them. Whether that was a good thing or not, Voss had no idea. Behind them, something stirred in the depths of the ship, a deep, guttural vibration, not mechanical, predatory. Voss didn't dare look back. The man moved with unnatural speed, his bare feet. barely making a sound against the shifting floor. Voss could hear his own breath in his helmet, could feel the sharp sting of sweat in his eyes. "Who are you?" Voss finally managed between heavy breaths. "No time," the man snapped. He turned sharply, pressing his palm against a section of the wall. The surface rippled, responding to his touch like liquid metal. A passage opened ahead, revealing a darkened chamber lined with alien symbols, glowing, shifting glyphs moving across the walls like living scripture. But Voss's attention wasn't on the symbols. It was on what lay beyond the chamber, a control core. Unlike anything human, the core was a towering, pulsating structure of intertwining tendrils, forming a massive spinal column that stretched into the depths of the ship. It pulsed in rhythmic waves, sending energy cascading through its veins. This was the brain of the vessel. "We need to sever the link," the man said. Voss narrowed his eyes. "What link?" The man turned to him, his glowing veins flickering like static interference. "This ship isn't just alive, it's part of a hive. And right now so it's calling for reinforcements." Voss felt his stomach drop. He had fought the Scythe for years, but one truth had always been absolute. Their ships did not retreat. They never left survivors. If this vessel was damaged, stranded, and calling for help, then it meant the rest of the fleet was already on its way. "You said they're coming." "Who? The Scythe?" Voss demanded. The man hesitated, his luminous eyes flickering, like a signal struggling through interference. "No," he said finally, voice heavy with something almost like dread. "Worse." Voss barely had time to process that before the ship lurched, its walls convulsing. The air thickened, the pressure shifting as if something had just entered the ship. Sound deep and reverberating echoed through the corridors. Not a machine, not a voice, a growl. The prisoner turned sharply, his entire body tensing, his fingers curled into fists, his breathing steady. They sent an apex. Voss's blood ran cold. He had heard whispers of the apex, Scythe hunters, engineered monstrosities designed for one purpose, to eliminate anything that shouldn't exist. Even among the horrors of war, apex units were legend. Ghosts on the battlefield. No confirmed sightings, only aftermaths, entire squads vanishing without a trace. "If it's hunting us," Voss said, checking his sidearm, "then we kill it first." The man didn't respond. Instead, his glowing veins darkened, his expression shifting from fear to something else, something primal. "No," he said, stepping forward. His eyes locked on the twisting shadows beyond the chamber. "We don't kill it. We let it find us." And then, through the pulsing darkness, something moved. The silence was suffocating. The air inside the ship thickened with a static charge, as if the very atoms were rearranging themselves. Voss tightened his grip on his weapon, his heart pounding against his ribs. The chamber's dim bioluminescent glow pulsed erratically, mirroring the unnatural energy coursing through the ship's veins. And then the shadows moved. A hulking form detached itself from the darkness, shifting with a liquid grace that defied its sheer mass. Its exoskeleton, black as void space, shimmered with an eerie, shifting iridescence, an organic blend of chitin and adaptive plating. The creature was humanoid only in silhouette, but its proportions were grotesque, unnatural. Razor-edged limbs, flexed muscle and sinew reinforced with biomechanical enhancements. The apex had arrived. Voss could feel it, an overwhelming, suffocating presence that clawed at the edges of his mind. This thing wasn't just a hunter, it was something more. It didn't just track its prey, it understood it, studied it, unmade it. The prisoner beside him exhaled slowly, his gaze locked onto the apex. "It's not alone," he murmured. Voss barely had time to process that before the chamber trembled. The walls warped, shifting with unnatural elasticity, and the ship's organic architecture split open to reveal more. 3 more figures stepping from the void, each moving with the same unnatural fluidity. 4 apex hunters. "They don't send 4 unless they're afraid," the prisoner muttered, his glowing veins flickering erratically. His body reacted to their presence, as if his very biology was at odds with the creatures before him. Voss swallowed hard. Fear was a luxury he couldn't afford. His years of battle instinct kicked in and he assessed their options. Escape? No. The ship had sealed the exit. Fight? Unlikely. Apex units were built to counter human tactics. Outthink them? Maybe. If we don't move, they'll surround us, Voss whispered. The prisoner turned to him, something unreadable in his expression. We're not their target. I am. And then the Apex spoke. Not in words, not in any language Voss could recognize, but in something deeper, something that vibrated against his skull, bypassing ears and striking directly at the core of his thoughts. It wasn't communication. It was invasion. Corrupted. Failed. Must be erased. The prisoner stiffened, his glowing veins darkening to a deep crimson. His jaw clenched, and for the first time since Voss had met him, he looked afraid. They know what I am, he murmured. Voss gritted his teeth. Then maybe you should tell me. The Apex took a step forward. The ship groaned in response, its living walls shifting as if it could feel the battle that was about to unfold. Then, in a blur of motion, the lead Apex lunged. Voss barely had time to react. The prisoner moved, not like a soldier, not even like a human. One moment he was standing still, the next he was a blur, his body twisting mid-air, meeting the Apex head-on. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, alien metal shrieking as the two forces collided. Voss staggered back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but his training wouldn't let him. He raised his weapon, tracking the other three Apex hunters as they circled. The prisoner fought like nothing Voss had ever seen. His movements were unpredictable, inhuman, one moment dodging in a blur, the next striking with bone-breaking force. The Apex countered with brutal efficiency, its elongated claws slashing through the air, carving deep wounds into the ship's walls. Sparks and alien fluid sprayed into the air as the two clashed in a violent, almost surgical dance of destruction. Voss fired. The plasma round struck one of the circling Apex, hitting center mass. The impact rippled, sending shockwaves across its body, but it didn't fall. Instead, the wound sealed itself within seconds, the plating shifting, adapting. Shit, Voss growled. These things weren't just hunters. They were learning in real time. The Apex turned to him now, recalibrating its focus. It took a single step forward, its stance adjusting. It had just analyzed his attack pattern, and now it knew how to counter him. The prisoner, still locked in combat with the lead Apex, shouted over his shoulder. Their armor adapts. You can't kill them the same way twice. Voss switched tactics. He aimed, not at the Apex, but at the chamber's energy conduits running along the walls. He fired plasma bolts rupturing the organic veins that pulsed with alien light. The ship reacted violently, walls convulsing, the atmosphere thickening. The Apex hesitated. It was only for a split second, but it was enough. The prisoner seized the moment, slamming his glowing fist into the Apex's chest. The impact caved in its armor, sending a pulse of crackling energy through its body. The creature convulsed, its form destabilizing, as if its very matter was coming undone. A scream, low, guttural, almost mechanical, ripped through the chamber, and then, in a violent implosion, the Apex ceased to exist. Voss barely had time to register the victory before the ship's alarms blared, sending a surge of bioelectricity through the floor. The remaining Apex units suddenly froze, their heads snapping toward the walls. Then, without a sound, they retreated. Just like that, they were gone. Voss exhaled sharply, lowering his weapon. What the hell just happened? The prisoner was breathing heavily, his glowing veins flickering erratically. He turned to Voss, his expression a mix of exhaustion and something else, something close to dread. They weren't here to kill us, he murmured. They were testing me. Voss frowned. Testing you for what? The ship shuddered beneath them. Then a voice. Not the Apex, not the ship. Something else, deeper, older, and impossibly vast. We have found you. And just like that, the entire ship started falling out of orbit. The world tilted. Voss felt the artificial gravity fail, his body lurching as the ship spiraled into freefall. Warning klaxons screamed, their piercing wails barely audible over the deafening roar of rupturing metal and pressurized gases venting into the void. The ship was dying, its organic architecture writhing in agony, unable to withstand the force tearing through it. He grasped onto the nearest support beam, his fingers barely finding purchase against the shifting, bioluminescent surface. The prisoner, beside him, staggered but remained eerily composed, his glowing veins pulsing brighter, as if his body was instinctively reacting to the ship's collapse. "Brace yourself," Voss shouted over the chaos, and then impact. A violent explosion rocked the ship's underbelly as it crashed through the upper layers of the alien planet's atmosphere. Firestorms of superheated plasma erupted across its hull, turning metal and flesh alike into molten debris. The vessel shook violently, throwing Voss and the prisoner into a violent tumble. Outside the viewport, the planet below loomed, a vast, unforgiving wasteland of jagged obsidian mountains, scorched deserts, and unnatural formations that pulsed with an eerie, sentient glow. It wasn't just a planet. It was something alive, and it was waiting for them. The ship's failing AI shrieked a final warning before systems overloaded in a brilliant cascade of sparks. Then blackness. The world returned in fragments. Voss awoke to the scent of burning flesh and the distant echoes of something massive moving beyond the wreckage. He coughed, his lungs aching from the acrid smoke swirling through the remains of the ship's hull. They had survived the crash. Barely. Metal groaned as Voss pushed himself up, taking in the devastation around him. The ship was shattered, twisted, wreckage scattered across the rocky terrain, its once mighty frame now a broken husk. Fires flickered in the dim twilight, casting elongated shadows that danced across the alien surface. The prisoner was already on his feet, surveying the landscape, with an unsettling stillness. "Where the hell are we?" Voss rasped. The prisoner didn't answer at first. His gaze was locked onto the horizon, where something impossible towered against the skyline, a colossal structure, neither fully organic nor mechanical, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. It hummed with power, sending ripples through the very air. "This world isn't natural," the prisoner murmured. "It's a construct." Voss frowned. "A construct? Built by who?" The prisoner's veins flickered uneasily. "Not built. Grown." Before Voss could respond, a distant howl split the air, low, guttural, and inhuman. They weren't alone. Voss swung his rifle up, scanning the shadows. Shapes moved beyond the wreckage, dozens of them, their elongated forms slinking through the ruins with eerie precision. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, not with intelligence, but with something far worse. Hunger. Voss gritted his teeth. "Scavengers." The prisoner exhaled slowly. "No. They're the planet's defense systems." Voss's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a crash site. It was a trap. A sudden snarl erupted from the left flank as one of the creatures leaped forward, its sinewy body unfurling into a mass of bladed limbs and razor-edged mandibles. Voss fired, his plasma round ripping through its skull, but before the body even hit the ground, the others rushed in. They came in waves, their biomechanical forms shifting and adapting mid-charge. Some crawled on all fours, others slithered like liquid shadows, their bodies twisting into whatever form best suited the kill. "Move!" the prisoner barked, already in motion. Voss sprinted after him, dodging a razor-sharp tendril that whipped through the air, slicing clean through a chunk of wreckage. They ran, weaving through the ruins, but the creatures kept pace, their movements too fast, too coordinated. And then the monolith awakened. A pulse rippled through the air, so powerful it sent the creatures reeling, their bodies spasming as if caught in an invisible field. Voss felt it too, a deep, resonating force, not painful but overwhelming. And in that moment the planet spoke, not in words, not in sound, but in thought. "You do not belong." Voss staggered, clutching his skull, as a presence pressed into his mind, vast and ancient. It wasn't a singular entity. It was many, a collective consciousness watching, evaluating, and then, in the distance, the monolith opened. A massive gateway yawned wide, revealing an abyss that seemed to stretch into infinity. Light flickered deep within, shifting as if something immense stirred beyond the veil. "They know we're here," the prisoner whispered, "and they're deciding if we live or die." The creatures around them froze, their bodies twitching as if awaiting a command. And then the ground split open beneath them. The last thing Voss saw was the prisoner's glowing veins pulsing erratically before they plunged into the abyss. Voss's world became weightless darkness. He tumbled through the abyss, his body twisting as unseen forces pulled and contorted around him. The air, or what passed for it, hummed with an unnatural energy, a presence that slithered into his mind, prying, searching, evaluating. The prisoner was beside him, arms outstretched, his glowing veins pulsing erratically as if fighting against something unseen. Then, sudden light, they emerged. Voss slammed onto a hard surface, his breath knocked from his lungs. The floor beneath him was not solid. It shifted like liquid, yet held the density of metal. The atmosphere was thick with an eerie luminescence, illuminating massive pillars that stretched upward into infinity. At the center of the vast chamber stood a being unlike anything Voss had ever encountered. It was tall, monolithic, its body, shifting between forms as if its very existence refused to settle into a singular shape. Tendrils of energy wove through its structure, pulsing in rhythmic waves that resonated with an intelligence so vast, so ancient, it made Voss's mind reel. Welcome. Outsiders. The voice wasn't spoken. It resonated inside his mind, bypassing language, seeping directly into his consciousness. Voss staggered, gripping his head, but the prisoner, his veins flaring brightly, stood unwavering. "What is this place?" Voss demanded, his voice hoarse. "You stand within the nexus, the heart of our kind, the mind of the eternal veil." The prisoner exhaled sharply. "A hive intelligence," he murmured. "This entire planet is a living construct, an extension of their will." Voss's pulse quickened. "Then why are we still alive?" The entity's shifting form flickered, pulsing. "We have observed, we have judged. You are different from the others, the invaders." The realization hit Voss like a sledgehammer. "You're not the ones attacking humanity, are you?" A long pause. The air shimmered. "No, we are not the architects of your destruction, but we are their prey and soon their weapon." The chamber shuddered. From the walls, ethereal visions flickered into view, colossal warships unlike anything in human history, assembling beyond the stars. Jagged structures pulsated with raw energy, massive fleets drifting in silent formation. At their core, an impossible entity. Something so massive it eclipsed entire moons, its tendrils weaving through space itself. They come not to conquer, but to consume. The being's form darkened, its resonance turning mournful. "We have fought them across galaxies. We have lost again and again, and now they come for you." Voss's breath caught. "You're saying humanity is next?" The prisoner stepped forward, his eyes burning with a newfound determination. "We can stop them, but not alone." The nexus flickered in consideration. "You are bold, but your kind is fractured, divided. You are not ready." Voss clenched his fists. "Then help us." The entity shifted, its presence swelling, testing them, measuring their resolve. And then, the walls of the chamber tore open, revealing a planet-sized war machine lying dormant beneath the surface. It was an armory, a relic of the Nexus's ancient wars, ships, weapons, technologies beyond comprehension, all waiting to be activated. "The architects will come," the Nexus intoned. "You have seen only the first wave, but if you would fight, if you would defy extinction, you must become more than what you are." The prisoner turned to Voss. "We don't have a choice. We either take this fight to them, or we die waiting for it to reach us." Voss exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. The decision was already made. "Then let's get to work." The chamber ignited with power as the Nexus awakened its ancient arsenal, preparing for a war that would decide the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. And so the battle was far from over. This was only the beginning, but now humanity was no longer alone. And now I want to hear from you. What would humanity's next move be? Would we stand a chance against a force that had conquered entire galaxies? Let me know in the comments below, and if you loved this story, share it with someone who enjoys epic sci-fi adventures. Your support helps bring more of these battles to life. Until next time, stay vigilant. The war is coming.